there and welcome to The Ring, Euronews' weekly debating show broadcasting from the European Parliament here in Brussels. On The Ring, elected members of the European Parliament go one-to-one on some of the biggest challenges facing the European Union today. With fire and fury all across the Middle East, today we're asking if the European Union should use its leverage to try to encourage President Donald Trump to stop what they say is not Europe's war. Luis Albertos has more.
With the US-Israeli war in Iran now entering its third week, Europe finds itself navigating an increasingly volatile geopolitical landscape. Last week, EU leaders gathered in Brussels to discuss the situation in the Middle East, stressing the need for de-escalation, the protection of civilians, and restraint in targeting critical infrastructure. Leaders also underlined the need to keep the vital Strait of Hormuz shipping lane open to mitigate energy supply disruptions as much as possible. Following last week's summit, more and more EU leaders are following an approach rooted in multilateralism and de-escalation. Chancellor Merz, who initially showed understanding for the US and Israel's strikes, is now distancing himself from the Trump administration's approach, as are many others. With European leaders choosing to stay largely on the sidelines of the conflict for now, what role should Europe take? And can it safeguard its economic interests at a time when consumers are already under pressure from high energy costs?
The questions that we have for our contenders. Let's meet them.
Özlem Demirel, a German MEP from the Left Group. She's a member of the Committees on Foreign Affairs and Security and Defense, a consistent critic of militarization and EU defense policy. She argues that increased arms spending fuels conflict rather than resolving it. In the context of the war in Iran, she said, "Bombs fall, the stock markets rise, people die. Israel and the United States don't care about the people of Iran." Riho Terras, an Estonian army general and MEP from the centre-right European People's Party. He is the vice president of the Security and Defense Committee at the European Parliament. A cheerleader for defense spending, he has stated, "We have talked about defense and strategic autonomy for years. Yet decisions stall, investments and innovation lag. Before blaming others, Kaja Kallas and other EU leaders should ask themselves what they have done to change this."
Özlem Demirel and Riho Terras, welcome to The Ring. As regular viewers will know, the objective here on The Ring is to show people back home how debates here in the European Parliament actually function and how you sometimes, and sometimes not, reach compromises. Are you ready?
Yes.
So, first question, Riho Terras, do you support Trump and Israel's war in Iran?
I think Ayatollah regime has violated human rights in Iran for 47 years, and it needed to be done something, and all the efforts of diplomacy did not work. But I am not sure the way it was launched today was the right way. I think launching a military operation, you need to know what the desired political end state is, and I cannot see the desired political end state today. I understand it could be the regime change, but you are not able to change the regime with only poorly military means. But the military means are necessary to force your ideas, and I think it should have been discussed with the allies beforehand also. These are the that's why I don't see the current moment the end state.
What about yourself, Özlem?
I'm rejecting this war totally, and I want to say that we know from the history that military means and military interventions and wars never brought democracy to this region. So I want this war to stop.
And what would you have done then in that case to get rid of the regime?
Look, my family has Kurdish roots. So it's not like this that I'm supporting this regime in any way. I don't do it. And this regime is a brutal regime oppressing his own people. And this regime has to go. But the gun of this regime never could be an intervention from foreign forces. So we have to stop this war and to support the people of Iran to get a better future.
And of course, the regime is still there. Mojtaba Khamenei is now the new supreme leader. And of course, the goal of Donald Trump, in principle, was to get rid of the regime. That goal has not been reached. Do you think President Trump has a plan here, Riho Terras?
Well, I just said that I don't see the desired end state defined politically, but I think the plan is to change the regime, and if you have less regime people, if you kill them as many as possible, then there is a weakens the regime. If you force the National Guard units of Iraqi guards to disappear, then it gives the possibility to the people. I think the mistake has been made that the attack did not take place before very large portion of the opposition were killed and executed recently before the war, and the people are not there. But on the response to how we can do it without military means, I don't think we were being able to discuss with Adolf Hitler the regime change or a political election of somebody would not have helped and did not work. It is history shows that in certain areas the military means are necessary, and nobody listens to somebody who does not have military means. Look at Europe. Europe is not at the table, not in Ukraine.
And just before we go into Europe not being on the table, let's get Özlem to respond to what you just heard.
Look, I'm from Germany, and I don't like it when people are comparing now our wars with the war of Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler attacked a lot of other countries. He started wars. This is not the case we have now by Iran. Iran didn't attack anybody. And to be honest, this war from Israel and US is not about democracy. It's not about the people. It's not about autocracy. We know that these countries also are working together with a lot of autocrats in this region, also religious, reactionary systems and regimes. So this is not the case. This is about for Israel to get a bigger Israel. It is about US control important resources, important trade routes.
And on Israel, in fact,
let's talk about the real reasons of this war, and we have to reject it because this war has a lot of impacts of the people. Firstly in Iran, who are dying, but also all over the world.
So the Iranian regime did not have an influence on the people.
We know from history, you are a general, former general.
History says that Iran has spread terrorism around itself. It has financed the terrorism, financed Hezbollah, financed Hamas, which caused people die in this area. So Iran is launching war against people.
You have been a former general in Afghanistan, right? How is the situation in Afghanistan after 20 years of war in Afghanistan? You said you wanted to free the women in Afghanistan. The situation of the women in Afghanistan after the war, you also were part of.
They were free as we were there. They were free as we were there. The people, I have seen women working on the computers in Afghanistan. Again, the strategic end state was not defined. I think that is the same problem today.
But there is that issue of the collateral damage of Trump's war that, as we heard, Europe does not support. We've heard the Europeans say, this is not our war, but yet Europe is sending millions to support Lebanon, whereas they have no say here, Özlem, in this war.
To be honest, it's not acceptable. Europe was also silent when Israel was a war criminal and had a genocide on the Palestinian people. And my country, Germany, for example, talked about, or the Chancellor of Germany, who was part of your party family, talked about the dirty work Israel is doing for us. And I want to ask, what is it about?
And I want to ask, why is the European Union then so vocal when it comes to Ukraine's war, but not when it comes to this?
Because Ukraine is in Europe. And that is where we have the biggest concern and the biggest threat. And I think this war in Iran takes a focus away from children dying today in Ukraine every day.
But there's over 1 million displaced, internally displaced in Lebanon. The European Union is sending cash flows there for this humanitarian crisis.
I understand that. But again, why is Europe not taken seriously? Because it does not have the military might to be taken seriously. And I think diplomacy has only its ways if it's supported by the strength, economical strength and military strength.
Back to the war in Iran. European leaders said it's not their war, but it's, of course, impacting you and me, every one of us. What would you say to that?
It's not the war of the European Union, and they are honest. They have to stop that the military bases in Europe can be used. Spain has shown us how it could work. And they have to stop their arms exports to Israel and to US.
And it's interesting you mentioned Spain, because of course Spain, or the Spanish government of Pedro Sanchez, did speak out against this war. And Donald Trump, Riho Terras, responded by saying, we're going to cut off trade with Spain. Do you think that's why other EU countries are a little bit hesitant to speak out?
No, I don't think so, but I think Spain is violating the unity of European Union by not paying its own bill on the defence and now trying to split the unity of European Union. I understand that Trump only takes us seriously if we act together, and he wants us to take by piece of peace, and that is exactly what Sanchez has achieved by acting alone.
OK, we're getting just warmed up here, but it's time to take a very short break. Because now it's time for our viewers to get a real flavour of the Parliament chamber, where MEPs ask direct questions to each other. And sometimes, as you can see, it does get heated. Ladies first, Özlem.
Okay, I want to hear from your side. What is your solution for this war? Does the European Union not have any instruments to stop this war? Or are you against stopping this war?
If you mean the war in Iran, then I don't think Europe has today the instruments, because we are not strong enough to sit at the table. We can try use our diplomatic means, but nobody listens to us. That means that we need to work on our own capabilities, on our own strengths, and even the economy is not anymore the strength of Europe, because we are not unified enough.
Now, your opportunity to ask a question now to Özlem.
We have seen wars emerge around us. Europe has not launched any wars. Europe has not, in the last 70 years, not been part to a war itself. But we see others attacking European countries around us. Do you think that Europe can solve these problems diplomatically, or do we need military means to back up our diplomatic efforts? And if not, what is the other way?
To be honest, yes, the European Union as European Union didn't launch wars. But European member states were also in the past part of wars, like we saw in Afghanistan, like we saw in Iraq, like we saw in Libya. It was not, UK is not anymore European Union, but it was also European countries. So it's not true that the European Union in the past was just standing for diplomacy and against wars in this world. So if we want to answer the times of wars, we have to go back and to stop about talking just about militarization.
Do you know the definition of a dialogue?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, that means that it needs two parts who want to discuss, to talk to each other. If one side wants to talk and the other one is not, and I have been experiencing myself trying to reach out to Russian chief of defense as I was chief of defense, and the response was, why? Nobody wants to talk to us. And not dictator Putin, not Chairman Xi, they don't care. And as long as we are weak, we are not at the table. And the dialogue needs two sides. And if Russia understands only military means, and they did not use diplomacy
maybe a
against
reaction,
Ukraine.
Özlem, to that.
I don't know what you mean with weak. European Union is one of the huge, or one of the biggest economic powers of the world. And also the European member states has a lot of military instruments, and we are spending a lot of money for military means. So it's like this. The facts are on the table. So don't tell just we are like this or we are like this. What is happening by now is that the European Union also decided, like the US, like China, like other big powers in this world, that they want to defend its own interests, and this means resources of the world, trade routes of the world, by military means. And what this means is that people are dying, that the working class all over the world is paying the bill for it, and this is not acceptable. This is why I'm rejecting this military means, and I'm saying we have to find another way to protect lives, to protect our earth.
There are certain things we cannot do yet. That is the response to what we can or cannot do. So we need to invest commonly together to a drone defense, because we have seen a new weapon developing, a disruptive technology which has been used in Ukraine and kills people. We need, for example, to invest in this kind of technologies in order to make sure that our people are defended and they are not dying.
Let me say clearly, it's not a solution for nobody to prolong wars. And it's also like this, that not just Putin said, I don't want to negotiate. It was also like this, that the Western countries long time said, we had no possibilities to negotiate, we don't want to negotiate. And this was prolonging this war. And the result of this war is not good for the Ukrainian people. So let me say this. You are from the EPP and you are standing for a conservative politics. You are, in the last weeks, your group has really weakened the right of asylum in European Union systems. And it's like this, that the war in Iran also has the result that people had to flee, that they become refugees, and maybe they want to come here. What is your answer? Why are you supporting wars or not rejecting wars, not doing everything to stop wars, and on the other side working against people who are affected by these wars and become refugees? What is your answer on it?
May I start with saying EPP is not launching wars, is not causing wars, and the only thing EPP stands for is to defend people against the wars which are around us, be it an Iran regime which has been killing, torturing people 47 years, or be it Russia, who has never listened to anybody, who launched wars since 2008, whose political aims are, who wants to achieve its political aims by military means.
And just on the potential refugee waves.
I'll come back to that. And so that is not what we want. And we want European people live safely in Europe. But we are ready to take refugees, but we don't want to have illegal refugees. We don't want to have economical refugees. We want to know who is living in Europe and who is not. And that's what we stand for.
But nowadays we have deportations to Syria, for example, where the war is...
And that is, of course,
we have deportations to Iran, we have deportations to Afghanistan.
They are not deportation because it's about people who are illegally in Europe.
And that is a debate for another day. But we have heard the views from our MEPs, and now I would like to bring in another argument. It is the voice of the US ambassador to the European Union, that is Andrew Puzder. He spoke to me earlier this week on Europe Today, Euronews' morning show, and he encouraged members of the European Parliament here to ratify the Turnberry EU-US trade deal, saying that it would be an economic malpractice not to pass this deal, that the US is not an obstacle. Puzder also described it as a great deal for the United States and the European Union. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what the Ambassador Puzder said about this deal, the fact that the European Parliament should push ahead and ratify it.
European Parliament should defend European people's interest, and therefore the Commission has worked out a deal. It is not an ideal deal, but we have to find the minimum common denominator with US and find the ways. We have to deal with US. We have to. And the current administration is not pro-Europe. The interest is not being European. They defend their people. So our task is to defend our people. And trade with US is needed, necessary, and good for our businesses and people.
Because just remember, that deal tripled tariffs on European goods while cutting duties on US industrial goods down to zero. And of course, it was harshly criticised for months as too favourable to the Trump administration. What is your view here on what Andrew Puzder said to us earlier this week here on Euronews?
I think we should have a clearer talk to the US, and if it's about defending the interests of the European people, we should have a clear politic that rejected what Donald Trump is by now doing. It should reject the war in Iran. Clearly, it should reject the politics of America, who is saying America first and dealing with a lot of wars. It's not just Iran, it's also Venezuela, it's also Cuba, it's also other countries who are now affected badly. And so we should have an own politics, which is really taking in mind what the people of Europe need. And the people of Europe needs especially social security systems. They need a cap for energy prices. They need affordable housing and stuff like this. And the European Union is not doing anything or not enough in this part.
And we'll come back to that point on consumers in just 1 minute. But now it is time to take a very short break here on The Ring. But stay with us, because we'll be back very soon with some more Political Punch from the European Parliament. Welcome back to The Ring, Euronews' weekly debate show here in the European Parliament in Brussels. For this edition, I'm joined by MEPs Riho Terras and Özlem Demirel, and the idea here is to bring the European Parliament debate to your very sofa. This week, we're focusing on how the European Union and its leaders are reacting to the ongoing war in Iran, a war that's directly impacting me and you, whether you're based in Kenya, Kerala or Kerry. Now, we wanted to hear from you, so we actually took to the streets of Brussels to hear how this war is affecting your daily life.
It has affected a lot of travel, I know that for sure, and economy. In Greece, we have a lot of cancellations, and it has impacted tourism as well. So there's definitely an economic impact in our country.
I'm sure that everyone in the European Union will feel the impact. Everything, food, services, gas for sure. Probably also things like heating.
I mean, it's energy. Everyone uses it. Everyone needs it, and I find it pretty crazy that the decision of two countries to go to war against Iran has such an impact on pretty much everyone.
Not anxious, but definitely will hit. But I already implement some energy-saving measures, so I hope this won't hit me hard.
So Riho Terras there, impacting everyone. Your reaction?
Absolutely, and that only shows that Europe needs to become more independent from the energy sources, and I think we should go back to the nuclear energy, which gives us the autonomy if we need it.
Would you agree with that?
No, I don't think that the nuclear energy is an energy system for the future, but what we have to do is to build up the renewable energy systems, and the European Union has slept long time and had forget to do this.
And as we all know, nuclear takes years, right? It takes years. Well, there's the small modular reactors, but they're also just being tested out. But just back to measures for Europeans. Now, today, we've seen Pedro Sánchez, Spanish Prime Minister, propose a €5 billion package to help consumers. Is that a good idea, Riho Terras?
To help in the difficult situation is a good idea if it's not a populism before the elections. I think we need to make an economy stronger, and the economy depends on the energy, for example. So we need really to take a very various package, and I don't think that renewable energy is something bad, but as we saw this winter in Estonia, the renewable energy does not help us in the situation where there is no wind and no sun. And no batteries to restore it. So we need sources which give energy on that moment. So we need to have a diversified package of energy and focus on that to make European economy more competitive, especially in the times of war.
Just one sentence about the social impacts and energy impacts of this war. We had it also by the war in Ukraine. We had it in the corona pandemic. We had a situation that really some companies are earning a lot of money, and this is also by now the fact. The oil companies are having real big profits by now because they are using this crisis every time, and the people are in a real bad situation. They have to decide if they buy food or if they fill their tank for the car to go to the work. So this is not acceptable. So I think it's not just a good idea to have packages to protect our people. It's necessary that we do it, and it's necessary that we cut the extra benefits, the extra profits from the companies. They have a lot of
Should EU leaders be gathering and discussing this necessity?
You are not able to distribute the wealth if there is no wealth. So market economy says you can only distribute something which exists, and to have a profit is nothing bad and evil. The profits and good tax profits are exactly what brings us ahead and gives our economy a stronger stand and the country's stronger situation. And I think the European Union need to gather together and find the solution for our first of all, for our competitiveness in our current world.
But the big companies has a lot of money, and they're richer than they had been ever before. We have more money in European Union we had before. This is fact. What we have is that the middle classes and the poor people are not anymore able to finance their life, and this is a problem. So we have to talk about the extra rich part of this region. We have a lot of millionaires, billionaires earning more money in this crisis. This is not acceptable. I'm sorry.
I have lived in communism where the distribution of the wealth was done without having rich and poor, and that was evil. That was the worst time of my life. I don't want to come back to that.
Look, you can just come with buzzwords like communism, stuff like this. The people of Europe,
you have not.
The people of Europe, they are realizing that what we are living in now is no perspective for them. It is rising war, it is rising crisis, and we need answers for the people. And you can't just put the real demands of the people away and just talking about communism. I'm not talking about communism, I'm talking about security for the people of Europe.
So that's the views from our MEPs. We would love to hear as well your view here. Join our debate, thering@euronews.com. That is our email address, so please reach out. But it is now time to move on to our fifth and final round. Are you ready? So now it is time for something a little bit different. I'm going to be asking our MEPs a set of questions, and you only have the opportunity to answer with yes or no. So, was it a good idea to kill the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei? Yes or no?
I don't like him, but I don't think that it's illegal and it shouldn't be.
Was it a good idea? Yes or no?
Yes.
Is the US still a friend to the European Union? Yes or no?
Yes.
The US people, yes. Trump, no.
Should the EU be more involved in this war? Yes or no?
Clearly no.
Yes.
And should European countries increase defence spending? Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Should Europe focus on renewable energy? Yes or no?
Yes.
A manage mix.
Manage mix. And should NATO be involved if the conflict expands? Yes or no?
No.
No, I'm against NATO also.
And just a question on European governments. Should European governments be subsidising energy costs today, now, to protect consumers? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
And is Iran a direct threat to European security?
No.
Yes, and it has always been.
OK, and have you agreed on anything that you've heard here? And what about you? Have you agreed?
I agree that renewable energy is a part of the energy mix.
Great. Well, I think we've given our viewers a perfect flavour of how you actually interact right here in the Parliament. So thank you so much to you both for being with us here. That does bring this edition of The Ring to an end. As I said, thering@euronews.com. That is our email address. Please reach out. Thank you so much again. Take care and see you soon on Euronews.